I actually want to caution against using the word romance. To me, romance can signify a lot of passion, chaos, instability, like we see in the movies. But this isn't always healthy. Romance can be part of a relationship, but we should make sure that it's not the definitive part. To me, the three great characteristics of a relationship are: first, healthy communication. Are you able to express your needs, desires, and issues without a great deal of conflict? And is the other person open to hearing it? Number 2 is equality. Do you feel like an equal to your partner? Are you both putting in equal effort? And finally, number 3 is trust. Do you feel your partner is loyal? Are you loyal to your partner? Do you ultimately have a safe relationship? Always try to best understand your partner's specific communication styles. A lot of times we'll take it personally if we notice someone's avoiding us or they're communicating with us less frequently than we'd like, and this doesn't mean that they don't care about you or they don't respect you. This is likely how they were modeled communication as a child. Your partner's communication style typically comes from how their caregivers communicated with each other. You should feel comfortable asking your partner, "How do you best handle conflict?" Also, some people struggle with verbal communication. So if that's the case, you may want to ask your partner to write down what they're feeling. And this way they won't feel so overwhelmed. Finally, know that communication requires compromise. So if you have a completely different communication style from your partner, know that it's going to be a work in progress until you figure out how you're both best going to communicate.
My best piece of advice would be to join like-minded groups. So, for example, if you're into dance, join a dance group. And you can find a lot of these on, something like Meetup or some sort of app. But you want to find groups that are similar to you. And then you can build a friendship from there, because typically, if you're interested in something, those might be those type of people that you want to build a friendship with. One of my favorite quotes from Maya Angelou I think can apply to friendships. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. So when you're building friendships with people, they're going to show you initially who they are. So trust that. And I'm a big proponent of trusting your instincts and investing in friendships that make you feel comfortable from the outset.
Based on the strength of Earth's gravity and the density and strength of rock, in principle you could make a single conical mountain that stretched between New York and Chicago and soared over 45 kilometers. That's twice the size of Olympus Mons and definitely dwarfs Everest. However, there are a couple reasons why we can't actually have that humongous of a mountain here on Earth. For one, Earth's crust is made up of continental plates that essentially float in the semi-solid rock of the mantle below. If you add more weight above the surface, they sink lower into the Earth's hot interior, and when they sink far enough, they soften and basically melt. For our conical mountain, that gives a new height limit of just 15 kilometers. As well, the powerful collision of two tectonic plates, which creates mountains in the first place, also fractures and cracks the rock, weakening its structure and exposing it to erosion. Over millions of years, freeze-thaw cycles pry at these cracks, while winds claw at the slopes and streams and glaciers carve deep valleys in the mountainside, all weakening the mountain's support. This can end badly. For example, 3,764-meter tall Aoraki Mount Cook in New Zealand had its top fall off one night in 1991, trimming it down to a 3,754-meter mountain. Given all the factors that conspire to limit the height of mountains, for example, sinking into the Earth's mantle, fractures, and erosion, I wouldn't bet on our tallest mountains getting much taller than they already are.
We've run a few different studies and found that the #1 purchase people say they regret after bank fees is eating out. It's a frequent purchase we make almost every day and is death by 1,000 cuts. A coffee here, a burrito there, it adds up and decreases our ability to save. Back when I lived in New York City, I looked at my expenses and saw that I spent over $2,000 on ride-sharing apps. It was more than my New York City rent. I vowed to make a change. And the next month, I spent $2,000 again. No change, because the information alone didn't change my behavior. I didn't change my environment. So now that I was $4,000 in the hole, I did two things. The first is that I unlinked my credit card from my car sharing apps. Instead, I linked a debit card that only had $300 a month. If I needed more, I had to go through the whole process of adding a new card. And we know that every click, every barrier, changes our behavior. We aren't machines. We don't carry around an abacus every day, adding up what we're spending in comparison to what we wanted. But what our brains are very good at is counting up the number of times we've done something. So I gave myself a limit. I can only use ride-sharing apps 3 times a week. It forced me to ration my travels. I got a handle on my car sharing expenses to the benefit of my husband because of the environmental changes that I did. So get a handle on whatever that purchase is for you and change your environment to make it harder to do so.
Inside Japan's corporations, the culture emphasizes the success of a company as a whole to be more important than any single individual, which might explain why one study found that 63% of Japanese felt guilty for taking paid leave. But perhaps more concerning is this: long work hours don't necessarily mean high productivity. In fact, Japan has the lowest productivity amongst the G7 nations. Earlier I mentioned the term karoshi. It means death by overwork. It's legally recognized by the government and usually is marked by a heart attack, stroke, or suicide due to stress. There's hundreds of cases of karoshi reported annually, although some argue these cases are underreported and that the real number could exceed that by up to 10 times.
An employee of the advertising firm Dentsu jumped to her death in 2015. The cause was said to have been depression caused by overwork.
The case generated widespread attention and renewed calls to change the long working hours and illegal unpaid overtime, highly common in Japan.
The firm was fined for violating labor standards because she was reportedly forced to work more than 100 hours of overtime per month.
The company's CEO even resigned over the controversy.
After the death, Dentsu made some changes within the company. One of them, the lights in the office now turn off at 10 p.m. every night in an effort to force employees to leave.
As populations have aged, dementia has soared to become the 5th leading cause of death worldwide. Alzheimer's disease, a form of dementia, accounts for most of these cases. Tens of billions of dollars have been spent on Alzheimer's research over the past several decades, but still, there is no cure. All attempts to halt the progression of the disease have failed. Now, many major drug companies have pulled out of research altogether. So why is Alzheimer's disease still such a medical mystery? One of the signs of Alzheimer's in the brain is damage of connections and the loss of large numbers of neurons over time. It affects the hippocampus and its connected structures, making it harder to form new memories or learn new information. As damage spreads through the brain, the cortex becomes thinner and more memories are lost, although emotional responses can often remain. As the brain shrinks further, it slowly alters personality and behaviour, and eventually the ability to live and function independently. Malaria's ability to resist drugs is one of the reasons success in eradicating it has levelled off. New ways to tackle malaria are being developed, seeking to wipe out the mosquitoes that carry the disease. A gene editing technology called CRISPR is being used to engineer a gene drive. This creates selfish genes that are always passed on to offspring. The aim is to interfere with fertility by driving a gene for sterility through an entire population. As it is passed from generation to generation, the population would be swamped with insects that are unable to reproduce. In theory, they could be driven to extinction. Last year, a team at Imperial College London successfully created a gene drive that wiped out enclosed cohorts of one species of malaria-carrying mosquito. But there is no guarantee that gene drives could work in the many environments where malaria is found in the world, especially in Africa. Humanity has shown that it can control malaria. It has been eradicated in around 35 countries. Currently, the best hope lies in a combination of methods. But in the future, a gene drive may be the most effective solution.
So I spent an hour trying on all these damn jeans, and I walked out of the store, truth, with the best fitting jeans I had ever had. I did better. All this choice made it possible for me to do better. But I felt worse. The reason I felt worse is that with all of these options available, my expectations about how good a pair of jeans should be went up. I had very low, I had no particular expectations when they only came in one flavor. When they came in 100 flavors, damn it, one of them should have been perfect. And what I got was good, but it wasn't perfect. And so I compared what I got to what I expected, and what I got was disappointing in comparison to what I expected. Adding options to people's lives can't help but increase the expectations people have about how good those options will be. And what that's going to produce is less satisfaction with results, even when they're good results.
All the evidence that is related to palliative care these days demonstrates with absolute certainty people live better and they live longer. A seminal article out of the New England Journal of Medicine in 2010, study done at Harvard, friends of mine, colleagues, end-stage lung cancer, one group with palliative care, a similar group without. The group with palliative care reported less pain, less depression. They needed fewer hospitalizations, and ladies and gentlemen, they lived 3 to 6 months longer. If palliative care were a cancer drug, every cancer doctor on the planet would write a prescription for it. Why don't they? This is a space that we will all come to at some point. But this conversation today is not about dying, it is about living. Living based on our values, what we find sacred, and how we want to write the chapters of our lives, whether it's the last or the last 5,